Discover how this boy came to America empty-handed and built an amazing $1 billion empire. Just imagine being a kid with nothing but a suitcase and a heart full of dreams. That was Miguel, just 12 years old, standing at the edge of a small town in America, taking it all in. The rusty trailer park that would become his new home loomed before him. It was a far cry from the chaos they fled in their homeland. He could hear the whispers of faded dreams, yet a flicker of hope ignited in his chest. His mother held his hand tightly, her eyes filled with determination and resilience that fueled the fire within him. Their days merged into a blur of navigating financial struggles and learning to adapt. They had $50 left, a mere drop in the bucket when all they needed was a roof over their heads. It was there, inside that rundown trailer, that Miguel clung to the lessons his mother instilled in him: hard work and self-reliance. She often said, "We may have lost everything, but we've got each other and our dreams. Never forget that." But school? That place felt like a battleground. Instead of being a sanctuary of learning, it felt like a gauntlet, especially when classmates from wealthier families sneered at him. "Look at the poor boy," one had said loudly, enough that his words clawed at Miguel's pride. With heart racing, he focused on his studies, excelling in academics like a warrior preparing for battle. He even volunteered at local community events, embodying the spirit of neighbor helping neighbor, trying to bridge the gap between his experiences and those of his peers. On the outside, he smiled, but inside, he was barely holding on. As money grew tighter, tensions crackled at home. Miguel and his mother clashed more frequently. "I can help us, Mom. I can work after school," he shouted one evening, frustration clouding his words. But she didn't see the world through his eyes. They misunderstood each other's dreams, like two ships passing in the night, lost and lonely. Would he chase his ambition for a future, or stay grounded to help his mother survive? Then came the spark of an idea during those dark nights. Fueled by the contempt he felt from his affluent peers, Miguel dove into developing a tech startup. For him, it was more than just a project. It was a symbol of hope. But as money poured out faster than it flowed in, reality hit. His early successes stumbled and faltered, wave after wave crashing against the shore of his ambitions. The thought of quitting gnawed at him. He teetered on the brink of giving up. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. One fateful night, at a local community event where lights flickered like stars, Miguel decided to share his journey. Standing in front of the crowd, his heart hammered against his ribcage. "I've struggled, but the sacrifices made by my mother fuel my fire," he cried out. His words hung in the air, painting pictures of hardship and resilience. The crowd held their breath. As he spoke, truths began to emerge, unveiling hidden sacrifices from his mother, layers of understanding peeling away like tender petals. Suddenly, he was left with an aching heart full of questions. What would he do with this newfound awareness? Could he reconcile his ambitions with the love and struggles of the woman who brought him here? With the stakes soaring higher, Miguel stood poised on the precipice of his life, a decision looming that could either propel him forward or tie him to the sacrifices that defined him. Would he chase his dreams or honor the path laid before him by his mother? The weight of uncertainty sat heavy, leaving readers breathless and eager for what came next. The next morning, Miguel woke to a fragile light filtering through the thin curtains of their trailer. The air felt thick with what had been said the night before. He rolled out of bed, his heart still heavy with the realization that sharing his story had unveiled more than just his own struggles. It had revealed the sacrifices his mother made, the dreams she quietly buried beneath the weight of providing for them both. "Today is a new day," he murmured to himself, looking in the cracked mirror. He couldn't shake the feeling that the speech had been a turning point. It wasn't just about his dreams anymore. It was about their shared story. Maybe, just maybe, it was time to weave those threads together. As he headed to school, his mind was a whirlwind. In the hallways, laughter echoed off the walls, but he felt separated from it all. The whispers from last week still stung, and he could see a few of the kids giving him sideways glances. But instead of retreating into the shadows, something in Miguel shifted. He stood a little taller, a steely determination igniting within him. Classes passed in a blur, though he was more engaged than ever. Math problems flashed before him, and instead of feeling overwhelmed, he started seeing solutions like puzzle pieces fitting together. His teachers noticed, voicing encouragement that felt warm, like a balm on an old wound. During lunch, he sought out a group of kids he'd seen at the community event. "Can I sit here?" he asked. Hesitation teetered on the edge of their expressions, but they nodded. As he joined them, an unexpected feeling washed over him. This was how it felt to belong, to be seen, to be heard. Miguel shared some of his ideas about the startup, explaining the tech he was building. To his surprise, their eyes lit up with interest. "That's cool," one of the kids exclaimed, leaning in closer. The conversation flowed, adrenaline racing through him. Here he was, no longer just the poor boy but someone with insight and talent, something to offer. After school, Miguel rushed home, excitement bubbling inside him. As he entered the trailer, he found his mother sitting at the table, exhausted from her long day. "Mom, I have an idea," he said, trying to keep his voice steady despite the exhilaration dancing in his chest. "I want to team up with some kids at school. I think we could make this startup work together." His mother looked uncertain. "Are you sure, Miguel? You need to focus on your studies. This is hard work." "No, listen, Mom," he insisted urgently. "I think if we pool our resources, we could make real progress. I could learn so much from them, and it could help us." He watched as her brow furrowed, a storm of emotions playing across her face. Could she allow him to chase this dream? Could he blend his ambitions with the need to support them? It seemed like a delicate balance, and he felt the weight of both choices pressing down on them. In that moment, everything hung in the air: their past, the sacrifices, the promise of a potential future. "I just want to honor our journey together," he whispered, hoping to bridge the gap between their fears and hopes. His mother studied him, searching for the doubt that had plagued her. Instead, she saw a glimmer of the dreamer he had become. "If this is what you truly want," she hesitated, "then we take it one step at a time. But promise me you'll keep your studies first." "I promise," he exclaimed, a smile breaking across his face. He felt hope surge within him, stronger than ever. His determination was no longer just for himself but for the woman who had fought tooth and nail for his future. Just then, an unexpected knock at the door pulled him from his thoughts. Who could be visiting now? His heart raced with curiosity. Perhaps it was an opportunity or something that could change everything. He turned to his mother, their eyes locking. With a shared breath, they opened the door and stepped into whatever awaited them next, but what he didn't expect was a familiar face standing on the other side. One that could either bridge their worlds or tear them apart. As the door creaked open, Miguel's heart jolted. There, standing in the dusky light, was Carlos. A boy from his past but carrying the weight of 1,000 memories. They had been childhood friends, sharing dreams and adventures before tides of life had swept Carlos away to a different world, one that felt leagues apart from Miguel's reality. "Miguel," Carlos exclaimed, his voice echoing with surprise. "I can't believe it's you." He stepped forward, his brown eyes sparkling with a mix of recognition and excitement. "Carlos," Miguel managed, his voice an odd mix of elation and apprehension. It'd been years since their paths diverged, each caught in the rush of life. Carlos had moved away, but Miguel had always felt their friendship linger in the corners of his heart. "Is this your place?" Carlos asked, glancing around the humble trailer. Miguel felt a twinge of shame under the weight of his friend's scrutiny. "Wow, it's cozy." The way Carlos said it made Miguel wonder if he was trying to be polite or if there was a hint of judgment in his tone. "Yeah, it's home," Miguel replied, pushing aside his insecurities with an effort. "What are you doing here? I thought you moved to the city." "I did," Carlos said, a slight grin forming beneath the stubble on his chin. But I came back to check on some things. I heard about your speech. Everyone's talking about it. They say you could be something big. Miguel felt his cheeks warm. The last thing he wanted was to be the talk of the town, but it was a different kind of strange to hear it from Carlos. They used to joke about being CEOs of their own companies one day. Little did they know how much life had shaped their paths. I'm working on a startup, Miguel admitted, hoping for a spark of enthusiasm. I want to bring something important to our community. Something that could really help. Carlos raised an eyebrow, genuine curiosity replacing his earlier hesitance. That's awesome, man. But are you sure? Starting a business is a big deal. It's risky. Miguel felt the doubts creep back in, even as he remembered his mother's faith in him. I know, but I think it could be worth it. I just need to keep my head in my studies too. You know? Carlos nodded, a thoughtful look in his eyes. What if I helped you? What do you mean? Miguel asked, a mixture of skepticism and hope stirring in him. I've been working in a startup for a while now. I've learned a ton. We've been creating something that could change industries. I could show you some of what I've learned. Help you build yours too, Carlos offered, an earnestness that seemed almost palpable. Miguel's mind raced. This was a glimmer of possibility. Carlos had traveled to bigger places, faced challenges Miguel had only dreamed about. But there was hesitation too. Could he trust this new dynamic, this rekindled friendship with the shadows of their past? Are you sure you want to do that? Miguel asked, his heart thumping heavily. I don't want you to feel like you're slumming it just to help an old friend. Carlos laughed, shaking his head. No slumming here, man. I'm excited to help. Besides, I see something in you. You've always had it. Let us do this together. Miguel felt warmth expand in his chest. Could this be the bridge he needed? An opportunity to harvest the support of someone who once knew him well? We could meet next week, Miguel suggested, the idea gaining momentum in his mind. I could show you what I've got. Absolutely. Carlos grinned, and in that smile, Miguel felt an echo of their childhood ambitions. Then, just as quickly, something sparked in Miguel's heart. He remembered his mother's worries, the delicate balance they had to maintain. He couldn't allow this friendship to divert him from his studies or overshadow the sacrifices already made. Just promise to keep it chill, okay? I need to stay focused, Miguel said, locking eyes with Carlos, serious now. Of course, Carlos agreed, though a glint of mischief remained. But I also promised to make it fun. Miguel chuckled, feeling a mix of excitement and apprehension bubbling within him. Could this new alliance with his past help elevate them both? As Carlos waved goodbye, stepping back into the fading light, Miguel felt a rush of possibilities wash over him. This was no ordinary door that had opened, but rather a doorway to new adventures and challenges. And as he turned back to the warmth of their trailer, the familiar scent of home wrapping around him, he couldn't shake the feeling that something extraordinary was just around the corner. Something that would test his resolve and bring them closer to a different kind of future. What if all he dreamed began to unfold in ways he could hardly imagine? Miguel sat on the worn-out couch in his trailer, the room still echoing with the vibrant energy of his conversation with Carlos. He traced the pattern of the faded upholstery, his mind flickering like a light bulb switched on. The startup business, a concept so abstract just days before, was suddenly bursting with potential. Felt almost surreal. Days went by as Miguel dove into his work, filled with excitement about the possibilities that lingered on the horizon. He carved out hours in his evenings, huddling over his laptop, his fingers flying over the keyboard as he drafted his business plan. Each idea felt weighty, every brainstorm created a faint flicker of hope. His mother's voice hummed in the background, reminding him of the late-night talks they'd had about ambition and resilience. The week rolled on, each day pulling him closer to his meeting with Carlos. Miguel's heart skipped every time he thought of it. He worried over the documents he had prepared. Were they good enough? Did they reflect the dreams and determination he had packed into those late-night hours? He meticulously reviewed everything, pausing only to glance at pictures of him and Carlos from their childhood. The laughter in those frozen moments wrapping around him like a warm blanket, Soon enough, the day dawned, bright and hopeful. Miguel paced the trailer, stomach twisting with both excitement and anxiety. Would Carlos truly want to invest his precious time in him? What if the ideas he decrafted fell flat? He shook his head, gritting his teeth to hold back the pangs of self-doubt. Finally, a knock at the door broke through his thoughts. Miguel found Carlos waiting, a wheeled backpack slung over one shoulder and his characteristic grin lighting up his face. "Ready to get started?" Carlos asked, an infectious enthusiasm sparking in the air. "Absolutely," Miguel replied, feeling the nervousness ebb away, replaced by a steady current of determination as they sat side by side at the cramped kitchen table, flashing monitors displaying Miguel's thoughtfully laid-out visions. Miguel felt a heartbeat of rhythm collaboration. They chewed through ideas, dissecting them, twisting them until they breathed life. Carlos was insightful, encouraging, and Miguel found himself inspired. He wasn't just another kid from a small town anymore. He was a part of something bigger, a shared dream. Hours slid by as their notes filled up with glowing concepts and tangible goals. Carlos shifted between mentor and friend, his laughter lightening the weight of seriousness, igniting sparks in Miguel that he had thought diminished with time. For moments, all worries of the future faded, leaving behind a rich tapestry of ambition and friendship. Suddenly, Carlos paused mid-sentence, his face shifting under a growing seriousness. "Miguel, this is great stuff, but remember, every business faces hurdles. What happens if things don't go right?" The question hung heavy in the air. Miguel's heart raced. "I'll figure it out," he said, though doubt flickered in his chest. The journey might not be smooth, but this was a new road, one he was willing to travel, no matter how rocky. Carlos nodded, his expression tinged with wisdom. "And I'll be there to help you through it. We'll tackle it together." The promise felt like an anchor in their shifting skies, offering a sense of security and partnership that Miguel hadn't known he needed. As the sun plunged down beyond the horizon, a thought sparked in Miguel's mind. This was it, the chance not just to build something meaningful but also to heal the past splintered between them. But walking away from the table later, as Carlos promised to return to finalize plans, Miguel felt a gnawing question. Could their rekindled friendship withstand the storms of ambition? Did his dreams of success risk tearing them apart once more? The possibilities loomed vast, but so did the shadows of their shared history. Only time would tell whether this adventure was a bridge to a brighter future or a path toward unseen challenges. As night settled in, Miguel's heart beat a little faster, feeling both hope and trepidation intertwining. Tomorrow would come, and with it, the promise of everything he had ever wanted. Would he have the courage to face it? The morning light spilled through the trailer's tiny window, spilling warmth and a sense of possibility into Miguel's cluttered space. He blinked awake, a mix of excitement and anxiety swirling within him like a storm. Today was the day they would finally pitch his business idea to a small group of local investors. The thought sent chills down his spine. He rushed through his morning routine, his stomach fluttering with a mix of fear and hope. As he washed his face, he caught a glimpse of himself in the mirror. The reflection of a determined young man stared back, one who was ready to step beyond the confines of his old narratives. Today felt different, but the weight of potential failure hung above him like a cloud threatening rain. He arrived at the co-working space early, the hum of conversation and clattering of keyboards filling the air. Each step echoed with the heartbeat of possibility, but Miguel felt tethered to the earth by uncertainty. What if they didn't see the potential he had glimpsed? What if his dreams folded before him like a house of cards? His pulse quickened as he spotted Carlos at a table in the corner, a focused look on his face as he tinkered with his laptop. Miguel joined him, and Carlos turned, flashing a grin that lightened the air. "Hey, you good?" Carlos asked, his tone surprisingly calm. "Yeah, just nervous," Miguel admitted, his voice a whisper. Carlos leaned back, feigning casualness, though the excitement in his eyes betrayed him. "That just means you care. And you should. You've worked hard for this moment. Trust yourself." Miguel swallowed hard as the clock ticked down to their meeting time. Each ticking second pushed him closer to the edge of his ambition. Finally, A sharp rap at the door called their attention to the 5 investors who walked in, smiles already plastered on their faces. He wanted to mimic them, but a knot tightened in his stomach. They settled in, and Carlos began the introduction, seamlessly outlining the journey they had taken to get to this moment. Miguel watched, a mix of admiration and envy. Carlos embodied the kind of confidence Miguel desperately wanted to channel, but he could feel that old fear seep back in. When it was time for Miguel to speak, he took a deep breath, standing to share his vision. Words flowed, his passion sparking like fireworks in the otherwise silent room. He painted pictures of innovation and potential, drawing on every late-night epiphany and whispered dream. The investors leaned in, nodding. A few opened their notebooks that he felt cautious hope bloom like a flower. But just as he reached the crescendo of his pitch, an unexpected question pierced through the air, slicing through his momentum. "Why should we invest in you?" one of the investors asked, skepticism lacing his words. Miguel's heart sank. A tightness settled in his throat. He hesitated, grasping for the words he knew would validate his journey, hoping they wouldn't sound hollow. "I know what it's like to start from nothing," he said slowly, vulnerability creeping in. "I can relate to the struggle. I want to link that experience to our product, to ensure we're building something meaningful, not just profitable. It's about love for our community and resilience." For a moment, silence filled the room. The weight of his honesty hung in the air. Eyes shifted, and Miguel could see they were considering him, not just the idea. A flicker of hope ignited again. As they continued, questions flew, feedback intertwined with praise. Miguel felt himself blooming, confidence unfurling. Together, they navigated through a tapestry of possibilities, each response threading them closer together. But as their meeting drew to a close, Carlos's earlier words echoed back, lurking in the corners of Miguel's mind. What if they didn't want to invest? What if all this crumbled? Just as he was about to box away that doubt, one investor stood, shaking Miguel's hand firmly. "You have something here. We want to explore this further." The words hung in the air, shimmering with potential, but still tethered by uncertainty. Miguel's heart was racing, caught between joy and fear. The battle within him rose again. Was this the start of greatness or the beginning of their looming downfall? Coming home felt different that evening. He walked through the door, tips of hope sparking beneath the surface of lingering anxiety. Would they move forward? Would his dreams take flight, or would they hit turbulence? As he settled down on that familiar, worn-out couch, exhaustion washed over him, but the flickers of excitement refused to dim. Tomorrow could bring new revelations, but he couldn't shake the nagging thought. What if success meant losing the very friendship that had brought him this far? Miguel leaned back, staring up at the ceiling, pondering the crossroads ahead. Would ambition push him into uncharted territory or unite him with Carlos? In the quiet of the night, an unsettling question loomed, heavy as the stars above. What would he sacrifice for his dream? The sunlight filtered through the trees as Miguel took a deep breath, the new day greeting him with a sense of muted promise. He had woken early, his mind still racing with the echoes of yesterday's meeting. The memory of that handshake danced on the edge of his thoughts. They wanted to explore further. What did that even mean? Shaking off lingering doubts, Miguel pulled on a clean shirt and grabbed a quick breakfast. He could feel the energy in the air. Possibilities were stretching out ahead of him like an endless road. But beneath the surface, apprehension churned at the co-working space. The atmosphere pulsed with life. Tables were filled with entrepreneurs scribbling their dreams into existence. But Miguel felt as though he was drifting apart from it all, a solitary island amidst a sea of ambition. Carlos spotted him from across the room and waved him over, his usual jovial demeanor radiating. "Hey, you're looking good," Carlos said, nudging Miguel's shoulder. "How are you feeling about the next meeting with the investors?" Excited and terrified, Miguel admitted, his voice low. The truth weighed heavier than he expected. Carlos gazed at him, understanding written across his face. "You've got this, man. Just remember, they liked what you had to say," Carlos replied, but Miguel noticed a little flicker in his friend's eyes, something almost haunting. He brushed it off, focusing instead on the burning need to validate his hopes as the day wore on. Miguel found himself in a coffee shop, hunched over his notes. There were so many things to consider, details he felt he needed to iron out. Questions from the investors resurfaced, a whirlwind of doubts whirled in his mind. What if he stumbled again? What if they saw the cracks in his vision? His thoughts were interrupted when he spotted a little girl at a nearby table, doodling on a napkin. The pure determination on her face hit him like a jolt. She was present, lost in her art, completely oblivious to the world around her. He was reminded of his own childhood dreams, his initial feelings of being lost, of longing for something better. Suddenly, he was jolted by a message from Carlos. Just 2 words flashed on his phone. "Meet me." An anxious flutter danced in Miguel's stomach as he made his way to their usual spot in the co-working space. When he arrived, Carlos's face was serious, a stark contrast to his usual lightheartedness. "What's up?" Miguel asked, concern creeping into his voice. "I think we need to talk about our roles moving forward," Carlos began, his eyes shifting away momentarily. "Look, Miguel, you know I believe in you." But Miguel felt the sharp tug of a knot tightening in his chest. "But what?" he pressed, though he feared the answer. "Things might be changing, you know? If we get funding, this thing could blow up. Suddenly we're not just friends anymore, we be business partners," Carlos admitted, his voice quieted by the weight of the revelation. Miguel's heart raced. The stakes were higher now, and here was Carlos, laying it bare. Could their friendship withstand the pressure? It felt as if they were walking a tightrope over an abyss, daring to lean too far in any direction. What if it changes everything? Miguel said, his voice cracking slightly. He wanted to scream, "Is it worth it?" But could he even bring himself to jeopardize what they had built together? Carlos met his gaze, the vulnerability in his expression disarming. "Maybe that's what success means. We need to let go of old narratives. I think we can make it work. It just depends on if we want to." Miguel swallowed hard, uncertainty clawing at him. What was more important, the dream or the bond they held? The room felt suffocating as tension palpable hung between them. In that moment, Miguel realized it wasn't just about dreams and aspirations. It was about the cost of ambition and what it could mean for the most important relationship in his life. As silence enveloped them, Miguel pondered the choice ahead, the dream he had chased, now intertwined with his closest friend. Would they unite in the face of opportunity? Or would ambition tear them apart? Carlos, Miguel started, heart racing, barely able to find the right words. "What if we can't?" His friend nodded slowly, sensing the gravity of the unresolved tension. The choices loomed before him like hushed whispers in the wind, beckoning him toward a future uncertain and fraught with potential landmines. What fate awaited them, and what would he risk to keep his dreams alive? The weight of Miguel's words lingered in the air like a thick fog. Carlos stared at him, uncertainty flickering across his face. It felt like they were at a crossroads wrapped in silence, their paths about to diverge in ways neither could fully comprehend. "Let us take a deep breath," Carlos finally suggested, breaking the tension. "We need a plan. We've always been better when we approach things together." Miguel nodded, still processing the whirlwind of emotions. The flicker of hope that ignited when Carlos proposed a plan was enough to push back against the swirling shadows of doubt. "Maybe laying out our vision could help. What does success look like to both of us?" Carlos leaned back in his chair, tapping his fingers on the table as if weighing the possibilities. "For me, it's not just about money. It's about building something real, something that helps others. But I also want to make sure our friendship survives whatever happens next." Miguel's heart warmed at Carlos's words. "I want the same. Our vision has to align. Otherwise, it's like building a house on sand." "Exactly. So let us think about the mission. It should be central to everything," Carlos said, enthusiasm creeping back into his voice. As they began brainstorming, Miguel felt the fog begin to lift. They mapped out values, goals, and even the risks they might face. The whiteboard became a canvas of dreams. Yet, as Miguel contributed ideas, he couldn't shake the gnawing fear in his gut. What if their visions didn't merge? What if their ambitions became a wedge? The trust that defined their friendship was suddenly on a tightrope, swaying dangerously close to the edge. Hours slipped by, the sun dipping lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the co-working space. The both of them had lost track of time, immersed in their plans, laughter punctuating moments of doubt. "Hey, we could even," Carlos began, then paused, his smile fading slightly. "But it needs investment. If we don't get the backing," Miguel sensed his friend's worry. "That's the risk, right? But we can't let fear win. If we combine our strengths and stay honest, we have to believe we can pull this off." Carlos looked at him thoughtfully, the warmth of friendship mixing with the tension of business. "You're right. So what's our next step? Let's get feedback from others. More eyes on this can only help," Miguel suggested, feeling the renewed hope solidify into a tangible plan. As they finalized their ideas, an unexpected shadow fell over their bright optimism. "Miguel?" A voice interrupted. It was Elena, standing at the edge of their brainstorming session, a puzzled expression dominating her features. "Can I talk to you for a minute?" Miguel glanced at Carlos, holding his breath. There was something about Elena's tone, something urgent. "Sure, what's up?" Miguel asked, trying to sound casual. She stepped closer, her expression darkening. "It's about the investors. There's something you should know." The heart-tugging warmth that had filled Miguel moments before jolted with new anxiety. He instinctively took a step forward, pulling Carlos with him. Whatever news awaited them felt like an unsolved puzzle lurking in the shadows. "What is it?" Miguel pressed, uneasiness pooling in his stomach. Elena took a breath, and Miguel felt the world around them sharpen, as if bracing for an impending storm. "I think there are issues you need to consider before the next meeting. The stakes are higher than you realize." Miguel's insides churned. Elena's words were like a fragile glass shattering, and he knew in that moment that the path ahead was about to twist again. What would be on the other side of this revelation? Before he could ask more, Elena's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, her eyes widening. "We need to talk now. It's urgent." Miguel exchanged glances with Carlos, an unspoken fear hanging between them. What challenge awaited them this time? "Okay," he said, feeling the urgency wrap around him. "Let us figure this out." His heart raced faster than ever, knowing that the foundation of their plans was at risk. Would this be the moment of truth that would tilt everything in a different direction, or could they still find a way to hold on to their dreams? Miguel felt the chill of uncertainty wash over him as he followed Elena to a nearby conference room. Carlos trailed closely behind. The air felt heavy, like a thundercloud ready to burst. Each step echoed in Miguel's mind, amplifying the tension that crackled in the room. Once inside, Elena closed the door with a decisive click, isolating them from the buzz of the co-working space. "I'm glad we had a chance to talk privately," she said, her tone now more serious. "What I'm about to tell you could change everything." Carlos shifted uneasily beside Miguel, and Miguel swallowed hard, steeling himself for the oncoming storm. "Elena, just tell us," he urged, trying to inject some calm into the situation. She sighed, running a hand through her hair, clearly caught in the whirlpool of her own thoughts. "I've been speaking with some contacts, trying to gather intel on potential investors. Turns out, not everyone is on your side." Miguel's heart plummeted. "What do you mean, not on our side?" "A couple of these investors are looking for a way to put you two at odds. They're not interested in your vision or your partnership, Miguel. They want to buy out." She hesitated, gauging their reactions. "One of you." The words felt like knives, sharp and unforgiving. Miguel's pulse quickened, and he could see the same realization dawning on Carlos. "That can't be right," Carlos said, shaking his head. "We built this together." Elena crossed her arms, her brow furrowing. "I know, but these kinds of deals are cutthroat. They're looking for weaknesses they can exploit, and if they sense any division, they'll move in." Miguel glanced at Carlos, their eyes locking in shared disbelief. "So, they're trying to pit us against each other?" Miguel asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "It's a likely scenario," Elena confirmed, her expression darkening. "They see your friendship as a threat, a stronghold. They want to find a way to fracture it." The room fell silent. The weight of her words crashed around them, suffocating any flicker of ambition that had kindled earlier. "Why didn't you tell us sooner?" Carlos asked, clearly shaken. "I only just confirmed it," she replied, her voice softening. "I was hoping it was all talk. But it's serious. You need to be prepared for what's coming." "Prepared how?" Miguel's tone sharpened, desperation creeping into his words. "What if they try to turn us against each other?" Elena took a moment, collecting her thoughts. "You need to set boundaries. Draw a clear line in your partnership. Make sure communication stays open. You both need to be in sync." Carlos nodded, a mix of resolve and fear on his face. "We can do that, right, Miguel?" Miguel's heart raced at the notion, but doubts filled his thoughts like shadows. "But what if it's not enough? What if one of us gets tempted?" Elena stepped closer, her voice steady. "You have to trust each other. If all else falls apart, that's the only thing that matters." For a moment, they all stood silent, wrapped in the gravity of her words. Friendship versus ambition, a precarious balancing act. Miguel felt the anchor of shared dreams dragging him down. "Do you think we can make it?" Miguel asked, looking directly at Carlos, the question hanging between them. Carlos met his gaze, determination filling his eyes. "We have to try. We can't just walk away from everything we've built." Just then, Elena's phone buzzed again, jolting them from their thoughts. "It's another investor," she said, glancing at the screen, her complexion paling. "I need to take this." As she stepped outside, Miguel turned to Carlos, burdened by the weight of decision that lay ahead. "What if we have to make a call soon? One that could change everything?" Carlos nodded solemnly, knowing the stakes. "Then we'll face it together." But deep down, Miguel felt a lingering doubt. What if the cracks were already beginning to show? Before they could dive deeper into their fears, Elena returned, her expression indicating urgency. "We have another problem. The investors are gathering at the front. They want to meet now." Miguel's heart raced, adrenaline kicking in. This could mean everything or nothing. Were they ready for what was about to unfold? "Are you ready?" Carlos asked, uncertainty flashing across his face. They exchanged one last determined look. Ready or not, they would face whatever challenge awaited them. But what would the outcome be? Would they stand united? Or was their fragile partnership doomed to fracture under pressure? Miguel felt his knees tremble slightly as they stepped out of the conference room, the atmosphere thick with tension. The fluorescent lights above buzzed softly, contrasting the chaos spinning in his mind. A cluster of investors loomed ahead, a sea of sharp suits and guarded expressions. They seemed to glide toward him, eyes sharp and calculating. Miguel suddenly realized that he wasn't just facing a meeting. He was entering a battlefield. "Remember what Elena said?" Carlos whispered, nudging his friend back into focus. "Stay united." Miguel nodded, swallowing hard. "Yeah. Together." As they approached, the atmosphere shifted. The investors eyed them, a mix of curiosity and skepticism. One, a tall man with graying hair and a designer tie, stepped forward. "Miguel, Carlos," he began, voice smooth yet laced with an underlying edge. "We're excited to discuss your potential." "Thank you for having us," Miguel replied, forcing a smile, his heart racing. The weight of expectation pressed down heavily on him. "We've heard plenty about your vision, but we want to understand your partnership," the man continued, turning his gaze from Miguel to Carlos with a critical look. Before Miguel could respond, another investor, a woman with piercing blue eyes, interjected. "Partnerships can be tricky, you know. Any signs of conflict can be detrimental, especially in a growing venture like yours." Miguel's stomach dropped. They were playing into the paranoia Elena had warned them about. "We're committed to this journey together," Carlos said firmly, stepping closer to Miguel as if forming a barrier. "We believe in our shared vision and our strength as a team." The investors exchanged glances, the air thickening with unspoken judgments. "What's your strategy for pulling through the challenges?" the gray-haired man asked, tilting his head slightly, narrowing his eyes. Miguel felt his pulse drum in his ears. We have a clear plan. Foot traffic has increased at our location, and our brand loyalty grows stronger every day. We're ready to tackle any obstacles head-on. He added the last part with confidence, determined to exude assurance. The woman raised an eyebrow, skeptical. What happens if the tide turns? What if one of you decides to take a different path? The question lingered in the air, heavy and loaded. Miguel glanced at Carlos, searching for reassurance. They had not discussed that possibility in earnest. We won't let that happen, Miguel finally managed to say, his voice steadier than he felt. Well, it's a good thing to hear, said the gray-haired man, leaning back slightly, still assessing them. But I hope you understand it's essential for us to ensure loyalty and alignment. We simply can't afford weak links. One chink in the armor could sink the entire ship. Miguel felt the chill of those words settle deep within him, like ice piercing through his facade. What if that weak link turned out to be one of them? The meeting spiraled into a blur of questions and strategy discussions, but all Miguel could think about was the gnawing doubt creeping in like an unwelcome shadow. Finally, the investors began to disperse, leaving Miguel and Carlos on the fringe of the room, anxiety binding them closer together. What if one of them faltered? What if they didn't remain as strong as they believed? Did they see it? Did they sense the tension? Carlos asked, his voice barely above a whisper. I think they're counting on it, Miguel replied, dread pooling in his gut. Just then, Elena returned, her face slightly flushed. I couldn't find you two. I was worried. How did it go? Before they could respond, a commotion from the entrance of the co-working space drew their attention. Investors were murmuring, glancing at something or someone arriving. Miguel squinted, an uneasy feeling pulsing in his chest. What's happening? Stay alert, Elena urged, her voice lowered while she peered toward the door. And then Miguel saw it, a figure stepping into the room, someone he thought he'd left behind. His heart raced. The ground felt unsteady. Who had the power to change the game once more? Would this new arrival bring unity, or dissolve everything they had worked for? Miguel stood frozen as a familiar figure strode confidently into the co-working space. Marco, a childhood acquaintance whose family had once owned a successful tech company. He wore an easy smile, but Miguel's heart was pounding madly. Marco had once been the embodiment of privilege, swirling around with ease where they had scrapped for every scrap of success. But here he was now a big player in the investment game. Hey, Miguel. Long time no see, Marco greeted, his voice smooth like silk. The way he looked at Miguel felt more like a transaction than a reunion. The room buzzed with silent tension, investors whispering amongst themselves, assessing the impact of Marco's presence. Miguel clenched his fists, a swell of uncertainty rising within him. This was it, the moment that could either bring them down or raise them higher than ever. He glanced at Carlos, who bore an expression of deep concern mirroring his own. Marco, Miguel said, his voice steady but strained. What brings you here? Oh, just checking the landscape. Heard there's a buzz around this little startup of yours, Marco replied casually, but Miguel felt a hint of something more: competition. His stomach turned. Would Marco try to overtake their venture? Interesting, Carlos replied, trying to interject confidence. We're excited about the direction we're heading. Marco's eyes darted between them, a sly grin creeping on his face. Excited? I bet. But I wonder, is there room for more? Not every investment sticks. Sometimes it helps to have a partner with a bit more experience. Miguel felt the room shift, whispers growing louder. The very air filled with a sense of impending divide. Would the investors be swayed by Marco's promise of a seasoned ally, or would they see through his flashy veneer? Thank you, but we've got everything under control, Miguel asserted, trying to ground his voice in resolve. He searched for the right words, recalling the warmth of his mother's belief in him, the bond he forged with Carlos. They had weathered so much together. You're brave, Miguel. But bravery alone doesn't guarantee success. Marco's tone turned icy, taunting. After all, dreams are only as solid as the hands of those building them. With that, the investor's eyes sharpened, the shadows of doubt creeping back into Miguel's mind. Would they see Marco as the wise elder? Or did they recognize the raw, unfiltered ambition he shared with Carlos? Suddenly, Miguel's thoughts cleared. It wasn't just about proving himself against Marco, but defending the dreams he and Carlos had built. He took a deep breath, standing tall. What we got is more than just dreams, it's hard work, friendship, and understanding the struggles we overcome together. A ripple of surprise slipped through the crowd. For a moment, Miguel thought he saw respect flicker in the investor's eyes. Carlos stepped forward, reclaiming the moment. We value loyalty and teamwork over hollow promises. We're in this together. Miguel nodded, heart surging with shared belief. This was their truth. Survival wasn't just about who could outshine the other, but standing solid together through weeds and thorns. We will prosper as one, working side by side, every step of the way. Marco scoffed, but the investors looked contemplative now, their interest piqued by the authenticity in Miguel and Carlos's synergy. All right then, Marco smirked, backing away slightly. Let us see how that belief carries you, boys. He casually strolled away like a shadow retreating into the background, but his presence remained haunting, lingering like a dark cloud as the tension slowly dissipated. An investor approached Miguel and Carlos. I appreciate your conviction, the investor said, sincerity lacing their tone. It's refreshing to see such grounding in a partnership. Miguel's heart raced with a sense of possibility, a glimpse of validation. They had faced the storm together and emerged stronger. We know the hurdles, Carlos replied, leaning toward the investor. But we believe this venture isn't about individual accolades. It's an opportunity. For our community too. The investor nodded, a spark of enthusiasm igniting. I'd like to discuss how we can move forward. You two seem dedicated. Let us explore the next steps. As Miguel and Carlos shook hands with the investor, a rush of relief surged through Miguel's veins. Despite the looming challenges, they had stood united. This was the potential of partnership that transcended simple ambition. Walking away, Miguel felt the warmth of hope wrap around him like a comforting blanket. He glanced at Carlos, who wore a proud smile. We did it. Together, Miguel said softly, feeling the weight lift. Their journey was far from over, but they had transformed challenges into stepping stones, illuminating their paths along the way. With dreams reclaimed and futures intertwined, Miguel's heart now echoed with unshakable conviction. No matter what lay ahead, they would face it side by side, stronger together. This was the moment they had longed for, and there was no turning back. Remember, this is your chance to embrace the journey ahead. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment below your reactions and feelings about this incredible transformation. Share this video instantly with at least 5 friends who need to see how dreams can conquer fear. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait not even one more second to share this story.